Welcome back, everybody, to the Blazer Victory Podcast. This is your co-host, John Duncan, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Steve Irvine. And, guys, unfortunately, our Blazers lost to the Rice Owls 30-24 at Protective Stadium, and that is UAB's first Conference USA loss of the season. Steve, normally we talk a little bit before we record, but I thought it was good that we just kind of jumped into things and just gave everything raw to everybody and just talk about what happened yesterday at Protective.
If you know what happened, you let me know. I'm not sure quite what happened yesterday. It was a strange game a little bit. It was a frustrating game,
Yes.
no doubt. There were things that went well. There were things that didn't go well. There was a potential classic ending that didn't turn out classic, and just a frustrating day. I think you gotta before you do anything, I think you gotta give a lot of credit to Rice. I mean, they had a great plan. They came out and executed. I thought they punched UAB in the mouth a bunch. Wiley Green was probably played the game of his life. They caught everything he threw. Defensively they did enough. Played well defensively, and I thought the officials had an impact on the game.
Oh, no doubt. We'll get into that.
But I think that I think the first thing you need to do is give Rice a lot of credit. I mean, there's just no way around that. They played well, and they and for them to be coming off such a terrible game against UTSA to respond in the way they did, I think you got to give them a lot of credit for that. They had some guys injured. They had some guys out. I don't think certainly as many as UAB. UAB is a banged up team right now.
Yeah.
Again, the way I always look at it is that when a team wins, you got to give them credit. There obviously there were other factors, but you got first thing first. You give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. You got to start off by giving Coach Bloomgren and those Owls a lot of credit. Like you said, had a great game plan. I had texted you, like, I had yet to see Rice throw it as often as they did against UAB yesterday all season, really, because Rice is a team that under Bloomgren that they love to establish the run game early on, but I swear they came out just and for those that didn't realize too, Wiley Green was their backup quarterback, and also we saw a little bit of McCaffrey. I don't think he threw it; he ran it a lot, but that was their backup quarterback. Jake Constantine was their starter, and he was out. He didn't play at all in the UAB game. So you got to give all the credit in the world for a backup quarterback coming in and playing lights out like he did against UAB. But to be honest, Steve,
he was their start. He was their starter at the start of the year, though. It wasn't like this is a guy. It wasn't a Southern Miss situation. He started the first two games of the year. Now Constantine beat him out after that. But he wasn't a guy. Again, it's not like a Southern Miss guy where you're playing, a guy who's way down the depth chart. Now he didn't play well the first two games, but they played, Arkansas and Houston, or Arkansas and Texas, whoever it was. I think it was Arkansas and Texas. I guess it was. No, it was Arkansas and Houston. Yeah, and so, he's a guy who's played a lot in the past. He played against UAB. He was the guy that came in against UAB last year. So it wasn't like the Southern Miss that that he that just kind of threw him in there. But he responded, and that's what counts.
He did, but going back though, he's still the backup quarterback.
He is now.
It wasn't like, and that was what I was going into my point, that they didn't do a whole lot. Like, it looked like it was just a lot of slant passes, and they just hit us in the middle almost every time. And and I guess that goes back to with Mole still being out, and then Noah Wilder got the target. I've still got to go back and look at that targeting call, because from where I looked.
Yeah, I watched.
It didn't look bad, or it didn't look
no,
like it was a target.
I watched it last night when I got home. Watched some of the key plays. I didn't watch the whole game. I watched some of the key plays, and I thought it was a poor call. I mean, letter of the law again. I mean, that's one thing that with that targeting call, you can always go back to the old letter of the law.
Yeah, but that
Well,
happens
that's
every
what the rule
play.
says.
Yeah.
I know that's what the rule says, but I mean, the guy was making a tackle. I mean, this targeting thing has just gotten so ridiculous, and not just in this game. You see it every week in college football, every single week that where a guy makes a tackle. I mean, he didn't. I mean, and what they don't take into account in this letter of law stuff is the running back ducking their head.
Right.
They duck their head, and everybody does it. I mean, it's not a one team thing, and he comes up and he makes a tackle. Now, did their heads collide? Yeah, probably a little bit, but you don't take into account that the running back's ducking their head. I mean, I'm just tired of this rule, and I'm not talking about just this case.
No, in general, yeah.
I mean, it's over and over, and they always go back to the well. That's what the rule says. Shut up. I mean, I'm just so tired of it. And again, every week you look at several times you watch games around the country, and you see somebody getting ejected for making a tackle. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, and again, I say this all the time. I believe in safety, and I believe there's times where where that call is right. Because you got to be, you got to set, safety has to be the first thing with these players. I agree with that totally. But when you're ejecting people from making a tackle, just making a tackle. It's just, and this blindside block, the blindside block they called on Rajay Johnson Center. He was setting up. He was setting up. His back was to the guy, and he kind of, I mean, just and they overcame that one. But just, and again, this isn't a one game thing. This isn't just sour grapes because it happened, against UAB in a game. I mean, it's every week, and it's happened on the other side. I mean, there's guys that have been ejected against UAB that I say the same thing. Like, are you kidding me? He made a tackle, and that one was poor. And again, you can always hide as a referee. You can always hide behind, well, that's what the rule says. Well, there's apparently there's no gray area in that one. And if to me, if you're gonna eject a defensive guy for targeting a lot of times, and it came because the other guy ducked his head, eject both of them then.
Yeah, I agree.
Eject them. I mean, hey,
if you're
the
gonna
guy's
do that,
ducking his head, and causing the helmet to helmet, eject both of them. But they don't do that, so.
No.
But again, it's not a one team thing. It happens around the country, and I'm sure Rice has had it happen to them in a bad way. They didn't, it didn't happen yesterday, but I'm sure there's been games that have,
It just sucks too, though, that Noah's going to have to miss the first half of the Louisiana Tech game too.
No, it hurts a lot.
Weeks. Yeah,
it hurts a lot. He's playing at such a high level right now. I mean, that's back to back, double-digit tackles for him, and he's a leader for him, and yeah, I mean that hurts a lot, and need him out there, but. Not anything you can do about it now. I mean, I don't think there's an appeal process. I mean, I don't know I don't know that I've ever seen it. So
yeah, if there is, it's never been overturned.
yeah. I mean, it's you can't, and it's hard to go back and overturn. I understand why they wouldn't have that, but again, I mean, you go back to this you go back to this letter of the law thing, and but that hurt. I mean, that certainly hurt.
Yep. One last thing to give on the Rice side, just to give them credit. Going 5 for 5 on 4th down, man. Like, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, I know. I haven't either. And the 4th down, the punt, the fake punt was tremendous. Yeah. I mean, it was tremendous timing. Because they had that one earlier when there was 4th and inches, and they're trying to figure out whether they're gonna go forward or punt, and they end up punting. But, you think like, oh, were they going to fake this? Well, everybody in the world was looking for a fake there, but there was literally nobody that thought they were going to fake the ball and fake the punt in the situation they did.
Yeah.
Certainly UAB didn't, because they didn't defend it well.
Right.
And so, give them credit. I mean, they made a play, and that's the thing. Give them credit for making plays. I mean, they when they needed to make a play, Coach Clark talked about it at the game. They caught everything that Wiley Green threw, and then have a single drop. Some of them those were tough catches. August Pete and Jake Bailey were just tremendous. So I mean, they did a lot of things right. And sometimes you lose sight with a game like yesterday of what if, and boy we got cheated here, and boy this, that, and the other. But the bottom line is they made a lot of plays, and they made enough plays to win the game, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and going back to Pete or Petrie, whatever their wide receiver's name, but
Pete,
it's Pete. Okay, 6 catches for 108 yards, and I believe you said this post game with David Crane, like it seemed all 6 of those catches were like first down catches. Like they were big catches.
Yeah. And the same thing with Jake Bailey. I mean, I think both those guys just everything was a big catch. And August Pete's a guy that he's one of the better receivers in the conference when he's healthy. But you don't know much about him because one thing he plays for a team that doesn't throw a lot. Right. But the other thing is he's been hurt. And he didn't have a catch last week against UTSA, but he missed like 3 games I think before that. So he's a guy that they've been waiting to get healthy, and he's an impressive looking player now. I mean, he's an impressive looking player. So he, they knew he was good. They hadn't seen a lot of him this year, but they knew he was good, and he certainly showed it.
Yeah, no doubt. Now I will say though, Steve, though, I mean, like we've said, we've given credit to Rice, but the UAB defense, I know that we're beat up, but honestly, I think that's the worst our defense has looked in a Conference USA game in a long time. I mean, maybe even going back to the FAU championship game, but I haven't seen our defense just get exposed like that. Like, and to a team that doesn't even throw the ball a lot, I don't know. I don't get what happened.
Yeah, well, they played better. I mean, I think that there was, I think what happened was they played against a quarterback that played to the best of his, top of his ability, and there was a lot of times where the pass rush did a good job of getting after him, and he would just kind of get out of pressure and just calmly wait until a guy got open, I think a lot of it was credit to them. I thought they blocked up well up front. It just happens. They just played well. But the defense was exposed. It was certainly their worst game, the conference game in a while. I mean, but it just, I don't know. I mean, they just played well. I mean, it's all you can say about it. Now, I don't think they're as good up front as they looked yesterday, but they played well yesterday. And I do think that a part of it is Rice gives you so many looks, and and that's not to say you can't stop those looks, because they only had 102 yards total against UTSA, so it's hard to explain, but they do give you a lot of different looks, and I think UAB was confused a lot of the day, and that doesn't happen a lot, but I think they were, so. It's a bad day, and I do think, and it sounds like an excuse, but it's reality to me. Is I do think injuries had something to do with it. I do think that there were, that's a banged up defense, and you lose TD Marshall during the game, and Chris Moll's out for the season. They thought they're going to get him back, but it looks like, Coach said it after the game that he's out for the season. And TD Marshall's out for the season, and I don't know if anybody else is out for the season right now, but certainly those 2 guys are. So you got going forward, you're going to have to fill in. But I mean, depth has been good. I mean, that's the thing that's a little bit, that's frustrating about this is it's the same defense for the most part that played against Southern Miss last week and was great, so injuries did play a factor in it, and but you still got to go in there and make the play. They're banged up front. They had Devin Manigault playing, who I don't think had played all year. He might have played in one early game. True freshman, and I thought he played well. I mean, he had one
Yeah.
really really nice tackle, but he's a guy that if you're healthy up front, Isaiah Forte missed the whole game. I mean, he was out. I think Kevin Penn must have got banged up during the game because he played early, and I didn't see him in there
Yeah, I
much
didn't see him.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're banged up there, and they had to really dig into their depth up there. But again, I thought Manigault played well when he was in there, and he was in there a lot. And so moving forward, you're going to have to do that. Now, hopefully, in 2 weeks they're going to be a lot healthier, and I think they have a chance to be a lot healthier. But they're still going to have to play some guys that still going to have some guys missing, I would think, and just move forward.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's go over some stats on the offensive side of the ball. Dwayne McBride, 8 carries for 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wish he would have got a couple more carries, but he did look a little banged up.
Yeah, he hurt his ankle, but I think he could have had more carries before he hurt his ankle. I mean,
Agreed.
I think that's one thing that they didn't get a chance to do. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to criticize play calling because I don't know what they know. So it's easy to say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, but it's easy for us to sit here and say it. So I'm not going to criticize the play calling, but I do wish that he had gotten a few more touches because he was having a special day. I mean, he was the way he was running through people and away from people, and I mean, I think he could have had a special day. And it's unfortunate, they really didn't get the ball to him after his ankle because he didn't have much chance to do that. He wasn't the same that he was. But I thought earlier on I wish he would have gotten some more. But again, it's easy to sit here and say, well, he should have done this and he should have done that. Well, we don't know, and even if you think you don't really know what exactly they're doing to take the running game away and what was there and what was their plan was and just different things like that. So it's easy to say that, but on looking in from the outside, he really needed more than 8 touches last night or yesterday because he was having a special day.
Yeah. Dylan Hopkins, 19 of 31 for 318, a touchdown in that last game. Play of the game where he threw the pick. But I thought overall, and I think, Steve, you said this at the post game, that he, even though we lost, we saw some growing up from Dylan. Like, he looked better.
Yeah, I thought he did. I thought he did a good job. He threw the ball away a couple of times when he needed to, which I thought was great. I thought he got out of pressure a lot of times. I thought he delivered the ball well. I thought the deep ball to Garrett Prince that he threw, he got a lot more height on it. That one thing he's kind of struggled with is throwing a little more flat, deep ball. That and I think that's why he's had a lot of overthrows in it. And he gave Garrett Prince a chance to make a play, and Garrett Prince did make a play. So, I think that for the most part, he did well. I mean, obviously, like everybody else, he made a few bad decisions, but I thought he grew a lot. I mean, I thought he grew a heck of a lot. I thought so. I thought that was good to see. And yeah, it didn't come in a win, but hey, potentially won it. He wasn't the one call for holding, so he made a play that should have won the game for him. So
yeah, we're gonna hold that for just a few more minutes, and we'll get into.
Pardon the pun?
Pardon the pun. I didn't mean to do that.
I just threw a flag when you said that.
There you go. Hey, CUSA rep, man.
Yeah.
Well, just real quick on the receivers. Speaking of Garrett Prince, getting that 72-yard touchdown, good for him. 4 catches, 114 yards. Trey Shropshire, 4 catches for 81 yards. And Jermaine Brown, showing again this week that he can catch the ball. 5 catches for 55 yards, so good for him. Rajay Johnson Sanders, 3 catches for 42 yards. Samario Rudolph only had 2 catches for 6 yards, but he had that key, 4th down catch late in the game that allowed us to extend the drive and get into that last play. Let's just go ahead and get into it. Okay. So I did go back last night, and I skipped ahead, and I just wanted to see if it really was a hold. Honestly, Steve, I get where you can call it there, but 99% of the time, a ref's not going to throw that flag on the last, like one of the last plays of the game. Like, as a ref, you don't want to say that you made an impact on the game and you throw the, and I'm trying not to cuss or anything, but you don't make an impact on the game like that. Like, yeah, I can see where they could call the hold, but it wasn't egregious. Like, it wasn't an egregious hold. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because I know you said
Well,
you went back and watched it too.
yeah, and I
So
mean, I think you go back to the letter of the law again, and you don't take the human element into it. There was a little bit of a hold there, um, but I don't know that I call that either in that situation. I mean, what happened? Basically, what happened in my estimation of it was Elijah Garcia kind of did a great job of bull rushing him and
yeah,
got him off balance, and he kind of held on to the middle of his jersey or right where the shoulder pad kind of held on there, and I don't think he necessarily tackled him or pinned him down. I mean, I think a lot of the frustration too is you go back and watch that, and there's so many times, and you could do this in any game. I'm not just talking about this one, but I mean we're talking about this one, so I'm using an example.
yeah.
There was the third down play that led to their last field goal, to Rice's last field goal, where Green is kind of flushed, and there's number 52, I think he's their left guard, grabs a hold of somebody. They're engaging with two guys, and I don't remember who it was, but engaging with two guys, and the defender turns to run with him, and the guy just two-hand grabs him in the arm, like grabs his arm with both hands. Okay, wide open, referee's right there. They don't call it.
Yep.
Okay, so you don't call it there, but then you call it in the situation. I think that's the kind of thing that frustrates coaches, because Coach Clark and a lot of the coaches saw it and were reacting to it on that, and they end up ends up making a great play. They get the first down. If you hold it right there, moves them, maybe moves them out of field goal range, but certainly makes it third and long, and you see what happens there. So you don't call one and you do call the other. That's to me where coaches get frustrated. Okay. Yeah. The other thing on that play, you go back and watch the full play now. They interfere with Shropshire in the end zone.
No doubt.
No doubt. I mean, you can't even, I mean, there's no doubt. It's okay. So at the very least, that's offsetting penalties. Now, if it's offsetting penalties, maybe Coach Clark doesn't get the 15-yarder. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But it probably doesn't, because you see the flag down there and you see the flag here. Okay. So, at the worst, that's offsetting. If you call it, it's the worst offsetting. But they ignore the pass interference, and you see this all the time. You can't ignore that it's pass interference just because he caught the ball.
Right.
You still got to throw the flag.
Yep.
And they ignored it. So that's, to me, was the frustration. Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not going to say that he didn't hold a little bit, because he did.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, there's no, you go back and look at it close. There was some hold there. Now you go back and watch every play, and you probably see that same block on both sides. On both sides. I'm not talking about one side. Now, and the other thing, the offensive pass interference on Garrett Prince, two plays before, or play before, whatever it was. Oh my gosh.
I need to go back and rewatch that, because I didn't see.
Well, that. you don't see a good view of it, because they don't have now they talk about it a little bit like it was a bad call, but they don't ever have really a chance to show a replay, because it's the action's going pretty fast at that point, and they never really get a chance to show the replay, even though they show the second replay of 2 plays later of what could have been a fumble on Shropshire when they stripped him, and
but the play was blown dead, though. So
it was blown dead.
Commentators were saying, well, they shouldn't be in this situation. No, they blew the whistle, and then they stripped it after the whistle. So when the whistle was blown, the ball was dead. So it wasn't a fumble. So I don't understand why they kept regurgitating that
because you shouldn't. Because you can't hear the whistle on a replay like that. I mean, so I mean, I see their point. I do. Because I think it was a fairly quick whistle. Now, if you watch it close, which I did last night, he is going backwards when the ball's being stripped. I mean, they are pushing it. So forward progress is stopped.
Right.
Now, a lot of times they let that play go, and and it could have been called. Now, I wouldn't have complained at all if it was called because it was that close.
Yeah.
I mean, if they didn't blow the whistle, but so yeah, that was a break, but I don't think it was quite the break that the announcers were saying. But the offensive pass interference. I mean, again, that's a referee's impact in the game. I mean, that's literally. I mean, not even. That's 40 yards, 40 to 50 yards away from the play of a nothing. Of a nothing was happening there. I mean, just nothing was happening there. It was.
Was that including the blindside block too? Because you got to throw that in there too.
Well, on the blind side, they overcame the blind side, and that was so early in the game. That was silly. I mean, he saw the guy coming, and he just kind of picked him, and and the guy ran, and the guy saw. I mean, the guy ran, that was comical. It was so bad.
Yeah.
But then I think they got a pass interference or something to.
Well, I guess not the blindside block, but we got called for holding on that last, didn't we? On that punt, on the last drive.
Yeah,
Was that a hold? I need to go back and rewatch that.
No,
too. I forgot who they called it on.
They called it on Colby Dempsey. The one view looked like it wasn't, and then they showed a second view, and it looked like he might have hooked him a little bit. I don't think I would have called that. I don't think it was enough of a hold, but I think it was depending on where you threw the flag from. And honestly, there were two flags, so two guys saw it. So I didn't have as much problem with that, even though I didn't think it was necessarily something that should have been called. Again, I just don't think it was. I think there's other stuff that's happened in that game that was much more blatant that they didn't call.
Right.
On both sides, and so personally, I don't think that wouldn't have called that. But there were two guys that thought they saw it, and so that happens. But that hurt. I mean, that was that was first down to 45 going in on their 45, Rice 45, and and that made a big difference. It certainly did. But I mean, it was again, two guys made the call, and I wouldn't have called it, but I'm not a referee, and they are, and they don't have the advantage of watching it slow motion over afterwards, and they thought they saw something and they called it, and again, I didn't agree with it, but that one to me wasn't. Even though it had the impact, again, it's making an impact on the game when you don't need to be,
right.
But
I guess it goes back to your point, man. If you're gonna call it one side, you need to call it on the other side too. Especially with the pass interference calls. I mean, I swear there were at least 3 times. Well, like you mentioned on that Shropshire catch too, but a couple other times that it looked like it should have been defensive PI, pass interference on Rice, but it wasn't called at all. There were some obvious ones where they were just grabbing onto the UAB receiver and got a ref looking right at it, and he's not going to make the call. And I just don't get it. And you look at the overall penalties. Rice, 2 penalties for the whole game, 30 yards, and UAB 10 penalties for 108 yards. Were a couple of those penalties, like the unsportsmanlike, a couple of those penalties for UAB fair? Sure. But come on, man. 10-2. Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's also a team that doesn't get penalized much against a team that does get penalized a lot. So, I don't know that, I mean, there was stuff. Rice did not get called for a lot of stuff they did. Now UAB didn't too. I mean, that happens in the game. I understand that, but I don't know. I thought that in this case, and hey, there's been some other games that we've seen this year or in the past few years too that I thought the refs made an impact on the game, and that's not there's a lot of UAB's penalties over the years have been well deserved, and but I do think that every game there's some that they throw that you just
scratch your head, man. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, and I certainly thought there was a lot of head scratching, late yesterday. I just thought they impacted that thing, and again, at the very worst, that last play should have been offsetting penalties,
yeah,
and I mean, and hey, you still got a lot of work to do to get down there,
yeah,
but it's hey, but it happens, I mean, don't put yourself in that position.
you're right.
It's the same thing. I watch a lot of the UFC stuff, and they always talk about when you lose a controversial decision, you shouldn't have
Mhm.
put it in their hands.
Yeah,
And that's kind of the same thing you're talking about here. Play better, and you don't put yourself in a position to do that. And so bottom line is that's kind of the way you have to look. That's the way you grow. Now that doesn't mean you can't send these calls to the conference and say, we felt like, you know, these weren't correct. And they send you a email or call you and say, boy, you're right or you're wrong. And then you move forward, but it doesn't help. I mean,
it doesn't do anything. Yeah,
other than probably make you madder. But it's just, again, I hate any game, win or lose, or just watching, where I feel like the referees have put themselves in the spotlight.
yeah,
And I felt like they did that some yesterday,
yeah.
but I don't want to get caught up in a situation where that's the only thing you're looking at.
No, no, and see, and that's why we started off. Hey, still give all the credit in the world to Bloomgren and Rice. Hey, they played a lot better than I thought they were going to, Steve. So you
Mm-hmm.
definitely got to tip your hat off to him. But yeah, officiating definitely played a big part in this game as well. But anything else, Steve, on this game before we get out of here?
Well, I mean, I think the one thing we need to, the coach has talked about a couple of times after the game was the way that Tyler Johnson stood up in the locker room and said, and I don't know, it's not our business what he said, but or what the situation was when he said it, but apparently in the locker room, an emotional, disappointed, mad, whatever you want to call it, locker room. Apparently he stood up and was a huge leader and said some things that needed to be said, inspirational type stuff, I think, that needed to be said. And, Coach mentioned it to us on the post game, and he mentioned it in his post game with the writers and the TV, and that he was really proud of the way that Tyler stepped up as a leader. And, for him to do that in a time when, in his last year of playing football, when he's not playing,
Right.
the injury had moved him back, and his Dylan's the guy now, and if he stays healthy, and for him to step up like that, I mean, that just shows you who Tyler Johnson is, and it shows you what kind of a winner he is, and what kind of leader he is, and what kind of person he is, to step up in that situation and say whatever he said. And I have no idea, and I really don't care. It's none of our business what he said or what was going on in there. That's their business. But for Coach to say that a couple of times afterwards, it must have been really impactful. And I think that's huge. And I think that's the kind of thing you're going to need going forward, because the bottom line is, whether you're mad last night, where you think there's no chance of this, you win those last four, and you're pretty much in command of your own destiny. Now, obviously Rice has to lose one more.
Oh, they'll lose another one.
I mean, you think they will, but there's a pretty good chance of that, I would think. But you can control this season still. You can you win those last four, and I'm sure there's right now people think they're not going to win one of them, or only win one or whatever, and that's just kind of the knee jerk sort of thing. But if you can put yourself in position and still have a pretty special season now. Even though it's not as special as you'd hope going in, but these four, I mean, it's a tough 4 games to go down, after the bye. But if you stick together as a team and you play to your capability, you still have a chance to have a special season. So I think that's what was so important about, things like that happening, guys stepping up and, being a leader in this. And so that was very important. I think the other thing that, just kind of got lost in all the craziness of yesterday was, losing TD Marshall, poor, I mean, he came back this season to really, try to be part of a special season first and kind of pay the UAB folks back for giving him, a landing spot when he left Sanford. And then he just, suffers that and it was, it wasn't on a hit. He was covering, Pete and just kind of, I guess, stepped wrong or maybe stepped on Pete. I didn't really want to watch it because it was one of those sort of gruesome things that, but it's just such a shame that, he's had injuries starting camp and really hadn't played much this year. And I just hate that for him that, because that guy, and he's another guy. Now you see him, he hadn't been playing, but you see him on the sideline and he's a leader. He's stepped up and is a leader. And for him to not be able to play going forward, that hurts, I mean, you hate to see that for him. And so, I just wish him the best. And, I don't know exactly what it was, but, I mean, it was not good. I know that. And so, so I hate that, but, that's part of the game. I mean, you have to keep moving forward as a team, but I just hate it for him.
Yeah, me too. And also I hate it for Mole being out the rest of the year too. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, well, no, because they had, the coach has said a few times that, they had hoped to have him back, certainly after the bye. And maybe even before the bye, there was a thought that he might have gotten back for the Rice game, but I don't know what exactly happened, but he mentioned in the and I had heard it before the game from some people, but he mentioned in the post game that he was out for the year, and so I hate it for him because he was another guy that came back. He thought about leaving, and he came back, and I think really wanted to show the NFL scouts that he could play, or NFL teams he could play, safety, and just really never had much of a chance to show much. I mean, he played well when he was in, but so that hurts. I mean, he's a great player, and he does so much for that defense. But again, you got to step up to it. So I hate it for him too. Yeah, I mean, he's but again, it's part of the game, and you just got to keep moving on forward.
Yes. Well, UAB does have a bye week this week, so hopefully we can get a couple guys, some guys rested, and get ready for that 4-game gauntlet at the end. Where UAB has to play Louisiana Tech, go to Marshall, go to UTSA, and finish with a really good UTEP team. So, and honestly, I think all 4 of those teams, no disrespect to Rice, but I think all 4 of those teams are better than Rice. And, UAB, hopefully this is a Rice game that UAB can learn from, move forward, make adjustments, and get ready for that 4-game gauntlet, man. So,
yeah,
we're heading into the bye week. Time to move on from Rice. As always, make sure you're following us on Twitter, twitter.com/BlazerPod. And subscribe to our podcast on a podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you guys know. But we'll see you next time. Go Blazers.